Okay, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Kim Coble. I'm the Maryland Executive Director for the Maryland League of Conservation Voters, and it's a great day to have you join us. It has been a historic week in Maryland this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. A couple housekeeping things. Please enter your questions below as you have them in the question and answer or the chat, and be sure and put your name in there. As always, we're inviting you to help us design these Friday Digest conversations. We want to make sure that you are informed, engaged, and able to participate in the political process and the legislative process and all the things it takes to keep our environment moving forward. So please let us know how we can be helpful. What do you want us to be talking about? So put ideas in the chat and or contact us offline. So that invitation is always available, so please take advantage of it. As I said, it's been a historic week. We had the first female comptroller inaugurated. We had the first Black governor inaugurated. We had the first Indian lieutenant governor inaugurated. We had the first Black attorney general inaugurated a few weeks ago, and it was an incredible opportunity to celebrate all of Maryland. And I had the distinct honor of being a participant in the inauguration and had a chance to read the inaugural speech. I was overwhelmed by how much time and the comments that the governor made regarding climate change. It's come a long way. I remember years ago hoping a governor might mention the environment in some way or another, and there were over 2 paragraphs in his speech that were spent speaking about climate and justice and making commitments to it. So it's a new day. We have a new legislature with different leadership and different bills coming in, so we'll talk about that. But let me first introduce a true hero of mine, Candace Dodson-Reed, who is on our board. And Candace is the head of our DEIJ committee. She also, she joined the board in 2018, and she serves as Vice President of Government Relations and Community Affairs for UMBC. She was formerly Deputy Chief of Staff for Howard County Government. And in 2012, Candace founded the African American Community Roundtable of Howard County, which is an umbrella group that connects members of the local Black community. Candace hosts a podcast called Elevate Maryland and is the proud mother of a, I believe, not a college student, as my notes say, but as a medical student now. And yeah, quite an accomplishment. I will also tell you personally that Candace is a fabulous photographer and has displays out in Maryland. And we asked Candace to join us today. She had a front row viewpoint of the inauguration and has been participating in Brooke's transition team, served as treasurer for Brooke Learman. So I wanted her to share her thoughts, especially as we celebrate MLK this week, and just give us her thoughts on her experience and where Maryland's headed. So Candace, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kim. I really appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity that LCV, which is a wonderful, wonderful organization, has given me to reflect on this a little bit. And it's interesting because I'm not really a public crier, but I shed a few tears on Monday and Wednesday. And when I was thinking about sort of what those elections meant to me, I just feel so proud to be a Marylander. Both of those inaugurations took place at a location where people like me weren't allowed to even be, some 400 years ago, and where the slave ships literally dropped my ancestors off. And so as I was sitting there and thinking about that, and thinking about the responsibility that we all have as Marylanders to get this right, it was a powerful moment. History was made certainly on Monday and on Wednesday, but it's more than that for me. I think it's about the people we actually elected as well at this moment in time. These history makers are committed to leading with inclusivity and justice as part of their agendas. It was mentioned that I worked with Comptroller Learman as her treasurer, and I can remember I also served as co-chair and serve as co-chair of her transition team. And I can remember when we were first talking about, the structure of the team, one of the things that was important to her, in addition to setting up the subcommittees, was to have the lens of both sustainability and DEI as a framework of all of her work. And I haven't heard that before in elected leaders. I mean, it's been a really long time, and maybe never, that we have elected leaders who are thinking in this way. And it felt so wonderful. The remarks that Governor Moore made, to your point, he did talk a little bit about the history and the moment in time and where we were, but also talked about the importance of getting it right as it relates to climate. And I know just from our previous conversations with him, he's committed to environmental justice work as well. And then I have to just shout out Baltimore, because I don't believe we can be a great state if Baltimore is not living up to its full potential. And I think there's a true opportunity there with a governor who cares greatly about Baltimore, with a comptroller who cares greatly about Baltimore, a Speaker of the House who cares greatly about Baltimore and the Baltimore region, and then certainly with Senate President who does as well. So this moment in time is just, I mean, if we don't capitalize on this and really focus on issues related to environmental justice, it will be a lost moment. It really will be. And I'm really thankful that I get to belong to an organization like LCV that is committed to making sure that diverse voices are at the table and are committed to working with diverse elected officials like the ones that we have elected to get this right. This is the moment in time. I mean, this is it. And so what this means for people who look like me, people in cities and in rural areas who aren't sometimes part of the conversation as it relates to justice and environmental justice, it's really good, and it feels really good. And I'm so proud to be a Marylander, so proud to be on this board. And as they continue to say, all the inauguration activities, all that was fun. It's time to work. And I'm excited about the work ahead and what we get to do. So thank you. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, Candace, was beautifully said, and thank you so much for sharing it. And speaking of getting to work, Candace has to run to another meeting, so we're going to let her go. But on behalf of all of us, thank you. Keep up the great work. Glad you're part of the team.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Bye now. Very inspiring from her. And I want to emphasize the point that it is time to get to work. And Governor Moore Thursday morning was right at it. As we were too. He might have been a little bit more put together than I was on Thursday morning, but we're back at work. And so today's conversation is about the legislative session and where we're headed. But before we do that, I wanted to just show you the clip of Governor Moore's inauguration speech that was specific to the climate comments, because they were very inspiring. So let's roll.
We're often told that climate change is a problem for the future, or something that you only have to worry about if you live in farmlands or in a flood zone. But climate change is an existential threat, and it is happening now in our communities. And so confronting climate change represents another chance for Maryland to lead. We can and we will be a leader in wind technology, in grid electrification, and in clean transit. We will protect our jewel, the Chesapeake Bay, and address toxic air pollution that chokes our cities, and we will put Maryland on track to generate 100% clean energy by 2035 and create thousands of jobs in the process. Clean energy will not just be a part of our economy, clean energy will define our economy in Maryland. But that requires everybody. Companies, communities, state and local governments, and the people to take bold and decisive action together.
So there you have it. There's the job in front of us, and we are committed to doing it with you and in helping you to do what you need to do to really support that goal. One of the first, on Tuesday, the governor announced the secretaries for the environment agencies. We have Josh Kurtz at Maryland Maryland Natural Resources. We have Serena McIlwain at MDE. We have Kevin Addix at the Department of Agriculture. We have Mayor Jack Day at and DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development. And we were really pleased with these. And we have Senator Paul Pinsky at the Maryland Energy Administration. These are really strong appointments, and they sent quite a message. In fact, I made the comment to somebody that these are not political appointees. These are qualified folks that can advance the vision and the mission appointees. And that's really a refreshing thing. So let me start with Kristen. Kristen, as you all know, is our political director and has her walking shoes on, spending miles and miles every day walking around the General Assembly, but really has her finger on the pulse of all that. So Kristen, can you walk us through these appointments and tell us a little bit more about each of those and your sense on how you think they'll do?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get just overwhelmed because they're all so exciting. So we have some amazing champs who have been, many of whom have been longtime friends of the environmental community of Maryland LCV, and now at the helm and leading the state in these important critical agencies. Of course, the first step is they do need to be confirmed by the Senate. Right now, they're secretary and administrator designees, but they go through the Senate confirmation process, goes through the committee called this Executive Nominations Committee. They don't have any meetings scheduled yet, but we expect those meetings to start rolling early in February so that we can get them actually appointed. And there will be additional appointments coming. So all this will start probably in early February. But just to run through what Kim's already said about who the secretaries are, Serena McIlwain is somebody who comes from California, but has roots in Maryland and has decades of experience in leading and transforming government agencies on the national level and in California, and leading a state that's creatively addressing climate change issues. We follow California. The nation follows California in so many ways, and now somebody who is helping to make California the leader is going to be leading in Maryland. Senator Pinsky obviously is well known to all of us on this, I'm sure, as one of our most steadfast Senate champions for many years and the key architect of the historic climate legislation last year. He is in charge of the agency that will be helping to make sure that we are able to implement that exact legislation. So the exact person who was the architect of the legislation will be in charge of helping to implement the legislation, which is so important for our transition to a clean energy future in Maryland. Josh Kurtz is a friend to many of us. He comes to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. He's a valued longtime partner of Maryland LCV, a deep understanding of the environment, a track record on leading strategic initiatives to address challenges in Chesapeake Bay restoration, promoting acceptance of renewable energy, and is probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. Don't tell him I said so. Kevin Addix has extensive experience working with traditional agriculture as well as broader worlds of agricultural enhancements. He from his long career in that area, and so he has a depth of understanding of both the challenges and the opportunities that are facing rural Maryland as well as urban agriculture, which will make him a really strong leader. And finally, Mayor Jake Day won Maryland's LCV's Theodore Roosevelt Award in 2018 for his environmental leadership as mayor of Salisbury, in large part because of his experience working in local government and building partnerships while protecting Maryland's environment and rural communities. These are superb choices, all of them, and I could not be more excited to see these people implementing our changes.
Thank you, Kristen. And Rebecca Rehr, who's the Director of Climate Policy and Justice for Maryland LCV, is here to join us today. And Rebecca, give us your perspective on these appointments with regard to climate and justice, and also the message that you're hearing the governor deliver through these appointments.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And I agree, everything that Kristen said, ditto, right? And having folks with a record of action on climate will make a big difference on implementation, as Kristen already emphasized. A lot of the legislation we're working on this year is in service to implementation of the Climate Solutions Now Act, and on our path to 100% clean energy, as we heard the governor say loud and clear at the inauguration, that 100% clean energy for Maryland is a huge opportunity for us, for leadership, for the economy, and to really, as he says, leave no one behind, right? And so these appointments are his way of getting to work, as we've said, right? And the Climate Solutions Now Act, we're working on legislation that will bring that to life, to implement that. There's a lot of executive action that's required as part of the Climate Solutions Now Act. If we want to get to 60% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions by 2031, the Maryland Department of the Environment is going to give us a draft plan to do that by June of this year. And if you don't have people committed on day one, that's going to be really hard to do. And so we're really, excited to work with the agencies, to work with this leadership to get this done. And I think that's going to be a big shift too, is that lines of communication that were perhaps murky at times in different ways are going to be open and clear, to advocacy groups, but also to people on the ground. And that's going to be a big shift as well. And guess what? That's part of Climate Solutions Now too, that there's this focus on, community outreach to areas that are overburdened and underserved. And it's not just required by law. Now it's going to be a part of the core mission of this administration. And that alignment of implementation of this big law and the goals that this administration has is going to accelerate opportunities, for the environment and for people's health as they live in those environments. And so that's really the message that we're hearing, and that folks are really excited about, and expectations are pretty high. It's not, we have high expectations now, and we are going to do everything that we can to support, those expectations and help meet them.
Great. It is pretty exciting times for sure. Shifting gears a little bit, we also have some new faces and new structure in the Maryland General Assembly, with chairmanships and whatnot. And same kind of questions for you guys. So how do you, Kristen, first with you, fundamentally, what changes occurred regarding leadership, regarding committees? And then Rebecca, if you can just touch on what you're sensing in terms of the president and speaker's message around advancing environment and climate.
Sure. So we have new chairs in both chambers, committee changes. The Senate president and the Speaker of the House remain the same, but underneath that, there are several new leaders, including Mark Corman is the new majority leader in the House, who has been one of our great champions and leaders, especially on electrification and transportation issues, public transit issues. And then with the departure of longtime chairman Maggie McIntosh, we now have, for House Appropriations, we have Delegate Ben Barnes as chair of Appropriations. The House Government Operations, Health and Government Operations opportunity, the Vice Chair Jocelyn Pena-Melnick has advanced to become the chair of that committee with the retirement of Shane Pendergrass. The biggest change is in the Senate, though, where they had a major restructuring of the committee, of how the committees operated. With the departure of Chairman Pinsky, they took the opportunity to look at what the committees did and who did which work and what made sense of how things fit together. So they created, they moved the health programs that had been in the one committee, and they reconciled it all over into what's the Senate Finance Committee. And they moved the energy issues that were sitting in Senate Finance, and they moved it over to the Education and Environment Committee, which is now the Education, Energy and Environment Committee, or Triple E or 3E. What that means is that all of our issues are, which talk to each other. You can't separate climate from the environment. You can't separate energy from the environment. Now, all the same people are going to be looking at that issue. So we have basically a one-stop shop for that entire broad section of issues that do interact with each other and have been sort of isolated off into two different committees over the last several years. And better news still is that the leadership of that one Education, Energy, and Environment Committee is Senator Brian Feldman, with Vice Chair Cheryl Kagan continuing in the role that she began under then Chairman Paul Pinsky. Coincidentally, both of these leaders have shown true and committed leadership as environmental and climate champions. Both of them received awards from us in 2019. Senator Feldman was named a climate champion, and Senator Kagan was named one of our legislators of the year, along with now comptroller, then Delegate Brooke Learman. So we're in really good shape in the Senate in terms of people who are really committed to our issues, leading on these issues. And just as a programming note, Chairman Feldman will be on our Friday Digest on February 17th. So we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, and I think another exciting thing is that leadership and the message that we're getting, is that more and more there's an understanding that climate policy is an important tool to improve the lives of Marylanders. That climate policy is an opportunity for us to correct injustices of the past. We have a deeper and deeper understanding of the way that climate change is inequitably hurting people across our state, right? That we are contributing to it through our continued reliance on fossil fuels for energy, which is why that 100% clean energy piece is so upfront in the work to be done in the next several years, right? So it's not just understanding the harm that's coming to people through, climate injustice and history of environmental racism and the way that we cite polluting facilities. But now that we have a good understanding of that, and that legislators and the administration has a better and better understanding of that climate policy presents an opportunity to correct for past injustices and to build towards health equity. And I think that connection is the message that we're hearing, and that why there's so much weight and importance on climate policy in this overarching agenda.
Maybe both of you can just touch on this. The structure in the House is different, though. We have our Environment and Transportation Committee, and then we have our Economic Matters, and the energy provision bills are in the Economic Matters, and the rest of them are in Environment and Transportation. Do you think this, now that has been the system for a long time. So do you think that's going to be a major uphill, or do you feel like that's going to work for us? Any reflections on that?
If I'm taking Kristen saying on mute, saying I should take it first, which I'm happy to do. I think
go first, please.
I do think it's it makes things a little more difficult. And I think that, the other context piece is that the climate bills, although they're a big important part of what's going to be happening this year, are not the only big important thing that's happening this year. And that, as usual, legislators have a very full agenda ahead of them. And there are important healthcare bills, racial equity bills around policing, education, recreational use of marijuana. These are going to be big issues. And some of the chairs of committees, including the ones we're in front of on our bills, are leading on some of these issues. And so it might be that there's a lot of wins across a progressive agenda in 2023. And then some of the things that don't pass in 2023 have more room in 2024. So I think we have a real opportunity to look, multi-year, look at some of these things as multi-year strategy and wins, and that within the context of everything else that's going on and the new legislators coming in this year. So a learning, let's not forget about the learning curve, that goes into figuring out, how to navigate Annapolis and what that all means. That there's, I think that the committee structure in the House is something to keep in mind, and as well as the context of so many other important bills across sectors that are going to be on people's agendas this year.
Yeah,
Great.
the only thing I would add to that is that the other piece of this is that in addition to a governor and a lieutenant governor and a comptroller and an attorney general, all of whom made environment and climate a major part of their campaign, so did many of our legislative leaders. An increasing number of our legislative leaders had this as a core principle of their elections. We don't need them to all be focused in one committee because they're everywhere. And that's brilliant. We have
Great.
opportunity for so many champions and to make so much progress.
Yeah.
It does help
Yeah.
to have everybody in one committee over the Senate, but having them divided in the House, I think,
Yeah.
will be able
Let
to
me,
work with just as well.
I'm trying to make sure I get this in too, Kristen. So, for those of you watching, it's time to get to work for you too. And we're going to be talking about the bills. I believe next week we're talking about the bills and what the priorities are and how the community is organized. But just from a practical standpoint, Kristen, where are we? Is it a hybrid again? Can people access their legislators directly? Any nuts and bolts for folks that are listening today that they need to know, just practically speaking?
Yes. In many ways, we're back to business as usual with people in person largely. However, they heard very loud and clear that having people be able to testify remotely is valuable and important because we are not done with COVID and COVID is not done with us. So they are keeping the hybrid options. They're working with the ability to both have people testify in person and as well as virtually. They're working on how that's going to work. So I would say stay tuned. There are going to be some bumps along the way, and it might change a little bit committee to committee, but the legislators are there, they're available to you, and you should absolutely take this opportunity to reach out to them, thank them for their commitments to climate, ask them to stay strong and to prioritize these issues, which are so important to all of us.
Thank you. And, the other thing, be sure and check our website or give us a ring, because if they were an Maryland LCV endorsed candidate, we supported them, and we want them to understand that their constituents care about the environment. You guys are engaged with us. So just know, do your research a little bit on that. And as I said, we're happy to help. So we're down to the last minute. So let me do a couple pieces of homework. We're going to be, there it is. There's a survey, 5 easy questions for you. Please fill it out. Your feedback matters. It makes the difference. Please give it to us. Secondly, we've got some neat things planned moving forward. We'll do a legislative review. We also are going to, I'm going to be a panelist coming up, and we'll be joined by 2 of our board members. Each of us were on the transition teams, one with the governor, one with the comptroller, and one with the attorney general. And we're going to give you a little feedback on how that experience was and what worked and what we learned, and just so you get the inside story on the transition team. As Kristen indicated, we'll also be talking with Senator Feldman, which is going to be fun. He's an entertaining guy, so that'll be great as well. Lots more ahead. Here's the other important thing, January 31st, and that is when the Environmental Communities Legislative Summit will be held virtually at 4 o'clock. Am I right? 4, 5, 6, 6 o'clock on January 31st. More information's on our website, so you can get hooked up there, but that'll be 1 hour. So we're going to cover a lot in a short time period, have some new speakers, and that'll be very fun too. So it's 12:30. Welcome to our first Friday Digest on the 2023 legislative session. Look forward to working with you over the next couple months. Take care, everybody.